Yo, what's up guys? Welcome to this video today. My name is Chris. I'm a creative entrepreneur, and in this video, I'm going to teach you how to charge your worth, or how to go from working hourly to working on a project budget. Because personally, as a baby creative, I was like, I'll work hourly so I can get all the work I can. And then I started essentially showing up to shoots where, people would only book me for an hour or two, and I was spending more time prepping for the shoot, like, charging my gear, packing up my gear, driving there. There's like, 2.5 hours, and I'd shoot for 1 to 2 hours, and then I'd have to break down the shoot. I'd have to come home, I'd have to drop the footage, and then I was like, oh my God, like I just spent 6 hours on a job that I was only filming for 2 hours. And I was like, this doesn't make any sense at all. And then I essentially met this entrepreneur online, or followed his stuff, Zach Kravitz, and essentially I learned how to break down projects into budgets. Because if you even think about this too, like, you're too valuable as a creative to be charging hourly. Like, I don't think you can put an hourly rate on everything that you have. For instance, like, you have knowledge, wisdom, skill, expertise. The more projects you do, the better you get. The better you get, the faster you get. And the faster you get, if you're charging an hourly rate, and even if you're increasing it, you're still going to hit this point where a project that at the start, say it took 5 hours to edit, now you're at 2 hours. Yes, you can do more work, but you're doing more work for less money. Like, that doesn't make sense to me, and it shouldn't make sense to you. And if you're stuck in that pattern, good luck, keep crushing it. But if you're looking for a different way, let's go ahead and talk about that. So number one, what I like to do is charge a project budget. And yes, this is where that hourly rate comes in, because essentially, like I said, when you charge a project budget, you can account for stuff like drive time, setup, essentially, breaking down the shoot, dropping the footage, all that stuff takes time and it's valuable, and clients won't see the value in it if you're charging them hourly. Like, try to charge a client like, oh, I got to charge you 2 hours before the shoot because I got to get ready. Yeah, they won't buy that. But if you set a project budget, there's no transparency on how much time you're actually spending and working on that project. What you have to do is know your rate and apply that rate to the budget, and know how much time it's going to take, and use that as your leverage. Because they might even hit you and be like, oh yeah, we want an itemized list. Like, that's a cheap client, run. Like, and that's the best advice ever. If somebody doesn't honor your rate or whatever project budget you're setting, run, because they're going to be the biggest pain in the ass, and they're going to be a teacher. But let's screw that. We don't want to talk about that shit. Let's go actually to how I set project budgets, because this has been key. And like I said, I got this from Zach Kravitz. Zach Kravitz coaching, dude. Dude's a god. I freaking love Zach. I'm actually in his program right now, and we're on this thing, but he taught me this, and I want to teach it to you. So number one, what you need to do is figure out how much money you need to make a year, or how much money you want to make a year. So for example, this year, my goal is $150,000, and that is pushing me to a whole new level, but that's where I want to go. And you know what? I've learned from Elon Musk, my method is like, set it extra high and you'll get there fast. It's going to be stressful, but you'll get there sooner than if you set it lower. So number one, figure out your number. So mine's 150,000. And if you guys want, put in this number so that you can follow the flow with me. So then we're going to figure out how much we want to make for the year. Check. Next, we're going to do how many weeks of that year do we want to work. So my number was 48. I was like, I'll take a month off this year. Typically for travel is what I do, right? So 150,000, 48 weeks, and then how many days a week am I willing to work? I like to work 4. I'm kind of like a chiropractor over here because I like to have an extra day off just to recharge, because creative work does drain me, but I love it. So, I just do that as like an extra day of like health and wealth, self-care, and so forth. And then last, how many hours a day can you work? If you're a videographer, it might be a little bit easier to work more hours as opposed to editing. I don't know how some editors work 8-hour days. I know one editor here, she's incredible with how many hours she works. And I'm like, how? I know I can work a max of 5 hours a day on average. So that's going to be mine. So then we take this math and we pull out a little cell phone calculator here. I got to make sure we're doing this right. But essentially what we're going to do is put in these numbers. So figure out your yearly number. Mine was 150,000. So we're going to put that in the phone. Then we're going to divide it by the weeks we're willing to work. So mine was 48. That brings us to 3,125. And then how many days a week I'm willing to work. So I said 4. So I'm going to divide it by 4. And then from there, I'm going to divide 781.25 by how many hours a day I'm willing to work. So that was 5. So that's going to lead me to $156.25. So $156.25 is the rate that I use to bid jobs at. So for instance, what I would do is, like, say somebody called and they're like, hey, we wanted to, shoot a brand video. So what I'm going to do is essentially think, Okay, how many days are we gonna need for shooting? Great, okay. And then I'm gonna take all the time that I'm planning for, loading up the gear, dropping it, shoot, prep, breakdown, all that stuff. I'm gonna account for that. And then what I'm gonna do is also here, what I'm gonna do is add up those numbers together and come up with a number. And then even for editing can be a little tough. I always say add on 2 extra hours just to be safe. So I'm gonna figure out how much time it's gonna edit, knowing the deliverables. And then here comes the fun part. This is where I mentioned at the earlier part of this video that I kind of hit a part where I was like, oh crap, every project's going over. So what I tend to do now is add 30% to my bid. And this is like a safety variance in a sense. So for instance, it gives me the time, like I said, a project has never gone under the time I bid, so I'm underbidding. So what I needed to do was add in more time, but I couldn't figure out like how much every project was going over. And every project's different, right? Like, some clients need these little micro fixes, and it's just like literally the time opening and closing the emails and addressing it and sending it and exporting it, and just like the minute stuff that adds up over time. But by adding 30% to every project, that gives you a safe variance based on what you're bidding it at, to allow yourself to A, make a little bit more money maybe if it does go very well, but B, it also keeps you safe if the project does go over budget and you're not sitting over here like, oh, I know I bid this one right, but why is it going 10 hours over, like 10 freaking hours, or, whatever it is. But that gives you just a safe amount to, have as a line of that extra amount, right? And in the next video, I'm going to teach you how I actually invoice these too, because what else can happen is like, yeah, we'll get into this in the next video, but I'm going to essentially teach you guys how to invoice, because essentially I get paid before I start a project and I get paid the second half and fully before I even finish the project. So if you guys want to see that video, be sure to check it out. Hopefully today's video was helpful to help you go from an hourly person to a project person so that you can use your rate to make bigger project budgets, make more money, and start really accepting your value as an entrepreneur or a creative hustler. Whatever the heck you are, I'm here for you, and thank you guys for watching this video. Have a good day.